Have you ever felt something shift inside you without any clear reason? No dramatic event, no visible collapse, yet somehow you knew deep down that you crossed a line you could never return from. You didn't become louder. You became quieter, more aware, as if the world moved a step away and something new opened inside you. Carl Jung believed these moments are never accidental. They appear when a person completes a test most people avoid their entire lives. The silent confrontation with the self, not a battle with others, not a crisis the world can see, but a meeting with the deepest layers of your own mind. If you feel this video arrived at the exact right moment, it's not coincidence. It's a subtle signal, like a gentle knock from the unconscious saying, "You made it through. Now look ahead." There are times in life when you realize you've gone through something no one around you understands. Nothing obvious happened, yet everything inside you changed. Others may see you as distant, tired, or withdrawn. But inside, you've been standing face to face with forces stronger than any external pressure. This test is not losing a job, not heartbreak, not failure. Those are only outer doors. The real confrontation begins when you are forced to look directly at the psychological armor you built to survive. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." He described this phase as the night sea journey, the feeling of being swallowed by your own depth. A woman once shared that for months her life looked fine from the outside, yet inside she felt lost without a map. Things that once excited her felt empty. She thought something was wrong with her until she discovered Jung's work. She wasn't broken, she was being initiated. If you have ever felt an emptiness so deep that noise no longer helped, if silence felt terrifying, if returning to your old self became impossible, you were not failing, you were crossing the test. After this confrontation, something subtle begins to happen. Your old identity starts to crack, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that hurts because it's honest. Jung called this ego collapse the moment the false self dissolves so the real self can breathe. Roles that once defined you stop feeling stable. The stories you told about yourself no longer feel true. You feel lost, but strangely lighter. A man once described sitting alone in his car after work, unable to move. His career was strong, his image intact, yet inside he felt like an actor playing a role. When he suddenly broke down crying, he realized he wasn't losing himself. He was losing what was never real. Ego collapse is not weakness. It is freedom breaking through pain. Like a snake shedding its skin, you don't yet know what you'll look like afterward. Only that the old shell no longer fits. After this, the world begins to feel different. You start noticing repeating numbers, unexpected messages, words arriving exactly when you need them. Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidence. A woman once kept seeing the same image everywhere, a blue door, in dreams, on posters, in random pages of books. Eventually, she realized it reflected her inner truth. She had been stuck in a life that no longer belonged to her. The sign wasn't forcing her, it was inviting her. The unconscious doesn't shout, it whispers. Synchronicity appears only when the mind becomes quiet enough to hear it. As this awareness deepens, you begin noticing parts of yourself you once avoided. Anger you buried, desires you judged, fears hidden beneath strength. Jung said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of others. A woman once believed she was endlessly kind, but during this inner shift, anger surfaced. She feared she was becoming worse until she realized her kindness was built on the fear of abandonment. The moment she saw that truth, the anger lost its grip. The shadow does not make you weaker, it makes you whole. If you recognize even a fragment of yourself in this message, it means you did not run when the darkness appeared. You stayed, you faced it. You are not at the end. You are at a threshold. From here on, life no longer happens to you. It begins moving through you, and as life begins moving through you instead of against you, another quiet shift takes place, one that changes how you see people, situations, and even your past. You start realizing that much of what once hurt you was not caused by others alone, but by parts of yourself that were never understood. Old reactions lose their charge. Old wounds stop controlling your choices. This is the moment Jung described as withdrawing projections. Before this shift, it feels natural to believe that others are the source of your pain, that someone made you feel unworthy, that circumstances robbed you of peace. But when awareness deepens, something surprising happens. You begin to see that what you reacted to so strongly outside was often something unresolved within. A person who once triggered your anger no longer has the same power, not because they changed, but because you did. The emotion you once projected outward has been reclaimed and understood. With that, a great amount of energy returns to you. A man once shared that for years he blamed his father for his inability to feel confident. Every criticism felt like proof that he was never enough. During his inner transformation, he realized that the voice he feared was no longer his father's, it was his own. The moment he recognized that, the anger softened. Not forgiveness forced from the mind, but clarity arising from within. The projection dissolved, and with it, the emotional grip loosened. When projections are withdrawn, the world becomes lighter. People appear more human, less threatening. You stop demanding that others heal what only you can face. Responsibility returns to where it belongs, not as blame, but as power. This is also when compassion deepens, not the kind that tries to fix everyone, but the kind that understands. You recognize that most people are acting from their own unconscious wounds, just as you once did. That understanding does not excuse harm, but it frees you from carrying it. With projections withdrawn, relationships change. Some fall away naturally without drama. Others deepen because they are no longer built on unmet needs or silent expectations. You stop seeking completion through others because you no longer feel fragmented within yourself. At this stage, life grows quieter again. But this time the silence is not heavy, it is spacious. Decisions come with less inner conflict. You begin trusting subtle inner signals instead of loud external opinions. You no longer chase certainty, you sense direction. Jung believed this was the point where individuation truly begins the process of becoming who you actually are, rather than who you learned to be. Not perfect, not finished, but aligned. You may notice that your desires simplify. What once felt urgent loses importance. What once felt impossible now feels natural. You are less impressed by appearances and more sensitive to truth. Your attention turns inward, not out of fear, but out of respect for what is forming there. There is often a moment when you look back at your old life and realize you could never return to it, not because it was wrong, but because you have outgrown it, like trying to fit into a shape that once protected you but can no longer hold what you have become. This is not enlightenment as an escape from the world. It is presence within it. You still feel sadness, uncertainty, and longing, but they no longer define you. They move through you instead of owning you. If you are here now, sensing this shift even faintly, understand this: nothing has gone wrong. The confusion, the quiet, the release, they are all signs of integration, of a psyche reorganizing itself around truth instead of fear. Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That becoming is rarely loud. It does not announce itself. It unfolds slowly, in silence, through courage you did not know you had. And so, if this message found you at this moment, let it be a confirmation rather than a conclusion. You are not finished. You are not lost. You are in the middle of something deeply human and profoundly meaningful. The path ahead will not always be clear, but it will be yours. And that is the difference that changes everything. And as you continue walking this path, you may notice something else that feels almost unfamiliar, at first a growing sense of inner authority. Not dominance, not control, but a quiet knowing that you no longer need permission to be yourself. You stop asking the world who you should be. You begin listening inward instead. This shift can feel unsettling because for most of your life, identity was shaped through reflection, how others reacted to you, what you were rewarded for, what kept you safe or accepted. When those external mirrors lose importance, a brief emptiness appears. But that emptiness is not absence. It is space. Space where your own values, rhythms, and truths begin to form. People may sense this change before you do. Some will feel drawn to your calm. Others may feel uncomfortable, even threatened, without knowing why. It is not because you are doing something to them. It is because you are no longer adjusting yourself to fit their expectations. A woman once described this stage as standing in a room without leaning on the walls. For the first time, she felt supported from within. She could listen without absorbing, care without losing herself, and speak without rehearsing who she needed to be. At this point, life begins to test you in a different way, not with chaos, but with choice. You will be invited back into old patterns that once defined you. Old dynamics may reappear, almost as if to ask, "Are you sure you're done with this?" These moments are not setbacks. They are confirmations. Each time you choose clarity over habit, presence over performance, you strengthen the connection to your true self. The unconscious no longer needs to shout through pain. It communicates through intuition, through subtle resistance, through a feeling of quiet misalignment when something is not right. You may also notice a new relationship with time. Urgency fades. You are less rushed to prove, achieve, or explain. You understand that growth is not linear and that depth cannot be forced. This patience is not passivity, it is trust. Jung believed that when a person reaches this stage, life begins to arrange itself differently around them. Not because the world obeys their will, but because they are no longer fighting themselves. Inner conflict diminishes, and with it, unnecessary struggle falls away. There is often a deep sense of humility here. You see how little control you truly had before, how many decisions were driven by fear, conditioning, or the need to belong. And instead of shame, you feel compassion for who you were. That compassion seals the integration. You do not become superior to others. In fact, the opposite happens. You feel more connected to humanity, more aware of shared suffering, more gentle in your judgments. Strength expresses itself as steadiness, not hardness. And slowly, without ceremony, you begin to live from a place that feels real, not constantly inspired, not endlessly confident, but grounded. When challenges arise, and they will, you meet them without abandoning yourself. You no longer collapse inward or project outward. You stay present. That presence becomes your anchor. This is why Jung insisted that true transformation is not about escaping darkness, but about relating to it differently. The shadow does not disappear. It becomes conscious, and what is conscious no longer controls you from behind the scenes. If at any point you doubt this process, remember, awakening is not a destination. It is a relationship you build with yourself over time. Some days you will feel aligned, other days uncertain. Both belong. So take this moment not as a revelation to cling to, but as a reminder to return to. Return to honesty, return to awareness, return to the quiet voice within that has guided you this far. You have already crossed the boundary. You cannot go back. But you don't need to. What lies ahead is not a perfected version of you, but a more truthful one. And that truth, once lived, has a way of reshaping everything around it, gently, steadily, from the inside out.